Tell me what the hell are you scared of when in the end the only
Where's the love? Right here on this podcast. Welcome to Love Drops, where your hosts and One Love ambassadors, Charles and Diane, will share love, hope, and inspirational topics taken from their journey and world events. We will also include on-location recordings and special pop-up guests from cool places all around the world. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
whether big or small, love never fails. Oh, love it conquers all. Love never fails.
Welcome to the Love Drops podcast. Diane and I made a strong physical connection with our guests that we'll be hosting today. We met, we spoke, we exchanged ideas a few years ago, but I won't get into all of that. What I'll do is give the mic over to Diane so she can introduce our guest to our listeners.
Why, thank you, Charles. And yes, this guest is definitely somebody that we made a physical connection with. Doing the podcast, we meet people virtually, and then sometimes we meet them in person after. Well, this is kind of flipped. We met our guest, Tatianna, in person, and now we're doing this recording virtually. She is in the UK and we are in the DR. So, man, shout out to technology, right? So let me dive in and introduce you to our guest. Tatianna Donbavand is a personal trainer with an extensive dance background and training in multiple genres and a well-rounded education in fitness. She went to the University of Oregon and was able to teach dance and assist in choreography and did some main stage shows. Tatianna headed over the pond in 2013 to London for the first time. She went to study theater, and there she met her now husband. What we do for love. Tatianna moved to London in 2014 and continued to pursue work as a performer. Tatianna worked as a studio hire and coordinator while teaching dance and fitness classes. While she was working on weekends as a dance and fitness instructor, she then made the shift from office work to teaching fitness and dance full time. You go, girl. In 2023, Tatianna opened her own studio. We're talking in London, y'all, which brought together all the things she loved in a safe and inviting space built around an existing community in West London. Tatianna, it's so wonderful to have you on the show today, and I'm going to turn over the mic.
It's good to see you guys again.
You as well. So we're going to dive in. Let's talk about making training personal. So what does that mean to you, Tatianna?
So I've done personal training now for quite a few years. With the system in the US, you have to continue to take courses every 2 years. So your certification is only valid if you continue your education. So when I did my first certification, I did it knowing that I was going to continuously be learning. The system in the UK doesn't necessarily require you to do that, but there is a lot of perks to doing continued education, especially now that personal training, there's a lot more people going to like university and getting a bachelor's degree in sports science and stuff like that. So I think the industry is becoming a lot better at educating people on how to, do injury prevention properly and how to, okay, if you're doing bodybuilding, it's this. If you're doing Olympic lifting, it's this. If you want to go into just general population, it's this. And so you actually can go in and get a general certification and then over time start to really delve into the things that interest you. And for me, because I had a background in like dance and I started doing pole and aerial hoop and all of these sports that have really high injury rates for your shoulders, because I did gymnastics and stuff as well. I still do gymnastics. I'm a whole person. I'm like, I still want to be out there flipping. But yeah, my main clientele started to be people who were coming to me from these backgrounds as well. And so they'd be like, oh, I'm like rehabbing an injury or something. And it would be my job to then go and do some research about like the best way to get back from that. So I did, I want to say my first course on it was prehab versus rehab. And it's like an AFAA course in the States. And that had to be like 2015 or something like that. And then as I started doing that, I like the anatomy and physiology part of personal training. So like understanding like biomechanics and joint actions and things like that. And then I got into, I had always done Pilates, but I thought, oh, maybe I'll do my Pilates certification. And that just made me go way deeper into the anatomy and physiology portion while you're trying to learn Joseph Pilates' system of training. And so I got into the low back pain part of personal training, and it was level 4 low back pain specialization, where over here in the UK you start as a level 2, and that means that you can train like the general population. So that's your gym instructors on like if you're in a commercial gym, that will be someone that's maybe doing a group fitness class on the gym floor. Then you go to level 3. So you go just slightly deeper into the anatomy and physiology portion, but you'll also be learning how to train individuals safely, tailor programs, and then you go into a bit of sports nutrition. And then your level 4, you have to get your exercise referral, which explains, what to do if someone has asthma, diabetes, if they're coming to you on certain medications and all of that stuff, and how you would change the programming. And that part was really the bit that I was most interested in, because when I got into doing this, obviously I was like, I'm a performer. I'm doing this because I want to be passionate about the job that I do most of the week. When I was performing initially, I was working retail and stuff, and that was fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but I wasn't passionate about it. Where with this job, I'm like really passionate about helping people. And this is a way that I can still feel very connected to like my body as someone that moves for a living, but also I can train other people to feel connected to their body and feel good about stuff. And so I work with people who have just finished a physio program. Let's say they've injured themselves, they're coming back after they finish their rehabilitation program, and they just want to get back into training properly. So I work with a lot of people like that. And then also with personal training, you do just work with a lot of people that, I've never trained before. So I just want to learn how to do that safely. And it's just about trying to tailor that program to the individual. And then again, I get a lot of people who are like very advanced in whatever it is they do. Like I've trained some ballet dancers, and it's like, they can get their foot all the way back here, but it doesn't feel great when they do it. Or, I'm noticing now after dancing for X amount of years, this rotation doesn't feel right. And when you spend your days with your body, like as a dancer, you know what feels good and what doesn't feel good. And the strength component, when you can see someone be like, oh my gosh, I went to my class that I go to every week, because these people do the same thing. Like, like they're like, oh, I'm kind of injured, but I'm still going to have to go to these classes because otherwise I'm not going to perform, I'm not going to get cast in that show. I'm not going to be in that. The goal kind of slips away. So, they're still going to classes and they're still performing and they're still dancing. And you can see the difference when they're like, I went to class and it was like the first week that I did, whatever sequence, and it felt good again. And that is really rewarding. And I would say it's equally as rewarding for me when someone comes in and they're like, listen, my knee is really dodgy and I don't think I'll ever feel confident jump roping. And then, fast forward a year and they're like, jump roping. Like, I'm doing it. I'm doing that thing that I said I would never do. It's just really rewarding work. But yeah, you don't train everyone the same. And I think that's the confusion with personal training, because the majority of people, your exposure to personal training is kind of what you see on the internet. And this isn't slamming anyone, but it is just the reality that if you're purchasing a program from the internet, it is not tailored to you as an individual. It is a program, and it may be a great program and it may work for you, but that person has not written it for you personally. And if you don't have any limitations, that may be fine. You might be able to just go in and grab this 12-week program, do it exactly as written, and have no problem. But, I have a lot of people where I'm like, okay, well, even if we want to go through this style of training, I'm going to have to modify this, and this, and incorporate. A lot of times I am incorporating their old physio exercises back in. And the main focus is always, what's the goal?
Yeah.
Your goals are going to be different. If someone's goal is to like gain strength and someone else's goal is to gain just like more mobility, I'm not going to give them the same things to do. If you're trying to you're already really strong and you need to be more mobile and more flexible and all that stuff, we're going to look at other things first, versus if you're really flexible, maybe even hypermobile, then I'm going to look at trying to bridge that gap where your joints will go into a position, but not necessarily, they shouldn't be go there.
Right.
They
Oh my.
should go there, but they should also have the strength there. So it's just a different way of training. Like one of my really good friends right before her wedding was like, oh, just send, me and my mom, we want to start training before the wedding just to get into shape. So just send us a program. And I was like, okay, but your mom doesn't exercise and you just did a triathlon. So like you guys should not be doing the same things.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes.
I love that you want to train together, but you should train together and just do different things. Do the thing that's appropriate for you. And she does the thing that's appropriate for her. And I think that's the personal part of it.
Yeah, that is spot on. I mean, you really took us through that very, very easy to follow. Easy to follow. And I love that last example with your friend and her mom, right? Because that is huge in training. Like we were talking off recording, and I was like, Tatiana, I want to talk with you because I want to get into it. And sometimes we have these expectations, like we think we can do what we can't do. Like, okay, so let's start off with a full split, and maybe I can only go down just a little. So, I mean, hearing you speak on the personalization of your programs, that appeals and resonates so much to me and for me. So I'm looking forward to what we will do together. But back to the conversation, did you always know that you were going to open a studio there in London? Let's put in reverse, because you're doing it, girl. You're doing it.
I am, but I definitely did not know. Like when I moved over here, I really was just like, I'm gonna do the theater thing. I'm just gonna, endlessly audition and, book stuff. And I have done some work and stuff over here, and I've been able to work over here, and that's been great. But the reality of being a performer is every time you finish a job, you're unemployed. So you need to have, me and my friend Estella used to call it our lipstick and lunch money, because it's just like, you got to be able to feed yourself and like keep yourself together. And, when I first started working here, I was doing a lot of customer service jobs. And then I got into sales because I realized I used to manage service offices, which is just like a 9 to 5. It's kind of like they have a bunch of these now. Ours was Regis is a big brand that a lot of people recognize, where you come in and you hot desk. I did not work for Regis, but it's just an example. Anyway, I used to manage one of these offices in Hanover Square, and I was very aware that the sales team was making the majority of the money, and the operations team, you're like getting it in the neck when someone gets it wrong on the sales side. They don't get screamed at. It's the person on the front desk that gets screamed at. It's like, oh, well, we're supposed to have all this, 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 and this. And I was like, okay. So I'm not going to get the bonus, but I am going to get all of the shouting and the negative. So I was like, I might figure out how I can get to the sales part.
Right?
Trying to get shouted at 9 a.m. every week because someone in office miles away has just booked this in to get the money and not actually given us the details properly. And it wasn't always bad. And sometimes it was, the ops team fault, and it goes back and forth, and it's never about the blame. But I was just like, I can see that there's a part where I don't have to deal with the super negative customer facing side of it. And then I ended up going to Dance Works in Central London because I just really, really, really wanted to be back in a dance studio. And that was great. You're working with other performers, you're back around all these creative people, you get to see all of the productions that are running and rehearsing. And I loved that. I really loved that. I loved being around those people. But then the sales part was like, I don't actually really want to be doing sales. Why am I still doing sales? I want to have a bit more free time so that I can do creative projects. And so then I switched gyms and I started working with a gym in North London, and the owners have now changed and stuff. So that gym is no longer what it was when I worked there. But the guy who was the GM at the time, his name was Alex. He was incredible. He was just really passionate about the space. And I saw how much joy and passion he had in running the studio. And I was like, okay, well, this is nice because I'm working directly with this guy who's very passionate about, this gym and this studio and his community. And seeing that example was really nice for me. And he always looked after the teachers as best he could. And he just like, there's a lot when you're a studio owner that I think people don't realize goes on behind the scenes. And, he was taking over a business from somebody else. So it came with its own, baggage type thing. And he just really gave it his all. And he was, really, really open and honest and transparent with me about it. And when I went to open this space, he actually was someone that I'd be like, hey, insurance won't give me a quote or something, like, can you tell me what that maybe would look like? And, what does this bill look like when it comes in? And how much were you spending on this? And he was nice enough to still answer me. He's not involved with this business at all, but he was nice enough to still be like, yeah, sure, dude. Like, this is what's going on. Like, send me some numbers just so I can get an idea when I was building my business plan. Because how else do you build a business plan of a business that doesn't exist if you don't have some sort of like reference point? And so if I hadn't worked with him, I feel like that part of it would have been really difficult. And then it became more of a necessity for me because I do 3 different things. I teach Pilates, I do stuff in the gym, and I also do pole. All of those require different equipment and all of those require space. And I'm also still teaching, like, sometimes people just want to come in and they want to dance, they want to move, they want to do that. So I need a dance studio. I need a clear space, with a nice floor, and I'm ready to go. I can't do that in like a gym. I can't be like, okay, well, I'm training this person at 12 and at 1:15, I'm training this person. And so it was like eating my hours commuting to all these different studios because I was working out of like 2 or 3 spaces at a time. So it became a necessity when I switched to doing the personal training thing full time, because after I stopped doing the admin job for the gym in North London after lockdown, basically I stopped doing that admin job and I switched to just training people full time. And at that point, I had also started training people online because COVID made that necessary. I don't think I would have made that jump either had I not been forced. But when the world shuts down and you've got clients being like, I still want to do something. And again, Alex, the guy who, used to run the gym that I worked for, he was the one that hopped on a call with me and was like, this is where you need to put your microphone. This is the settings that are working. You're getting really bad feedback. And he did that with every single one of the teachers that were teaching for the gym at that time.
Wow.
He called every single one of us and figured out what our home setup was like before our classes went live, because the UK shut down on like a Friday and we were all up and running teaching classes by that Monday. So all of the members could keep going to class because it was like, well, we don't know what's going to happen here. But like Alex was like, here, download this thing called Zoom. Okay. And then, he really sat and talked through it with me, and he did that with everyone so that the classes could be up and running. And after that, I'm going to my clients. I'm like, well, if you download this thing called Zoom, we could try it, and see how it goes. And then even after lockdown and everything finished over here, the hybrid training has been really good for me.
Okay.
People go away on vacation and they have more time. So like, actually, I can get 2 or 3 sessions in while I'm away. Like, oh, the hotel gym has this stuff in it, and they'll send me a picture and I'll modify their existing program for them so that when they get down there, they're not mentally doing the swap. I'm quite like, when I train myself, that's easy for me to do. But I think sometimes people forget, like, oh gosh, well, that equipment, they don't have that. They have this. Is that the same thing? Is this machine doing the same thing as what is in my program or whatever? And so, yeah, a lot of my clients, when they go away, they might be on like a 3-month business contract where they're going back and forth to the same place. And they'll send me the gym setup and I just write them a program for when they're using that stuff, because now I know what they've got. So yeah, the hybrid thing has been really good because it kind of keeps us going. But again, that was forced. I wouldn't have done the online training thing if it wasn't for lockdown. You have to just adjust. And then, when you're doing all this, I'm like, do I need a physical space? And then I was looking at how much I was commuting to all 3 of these different studios that I was using. I was like, yeah, I could, because now I can do an online session and it's quiet. I couldn't do this in a commercial gym.
Right.
Like I couldn't stop and be like, okay, let me just take this call here. I have to like go and find a corner to go do a conversation with. And then if I'm trying to train someone virtually, you've got people walking in and out of the background. And a lot of times people are in their homes. That's not very private. Yeah. Like that's the best part about online training. A lot of my clients I've had for years now, and like I know their kids. I know their dogs' names. I know their cats' names. Sometimes they didn't get to do laundry and they're like, I'm in a bra and underwear today, and that's what's going to happen. I'm like, fine, I don't care what you're doing. Start doing your mobility. It's just
Right.
the reality of like when you're a personal trainer, you learn so much about people's lives and they let you into their space. And so, I mean, here, this space that I have is a one-to-one space. When I was training commercial gyms, I train a lot of different types of people, and not everybody wants to be watched when they're training.
Exactly.
It's a vulnerable enough experience with just me in the room where someone's like, oh, she definitely knows what she's doing and she's about to watch me do something that's not right. And I'm like, yeah, but you're here to learn. Like, you should be okay making mistakes. But it's a lot easier to make mistakes in front of someone who's genuinely looking out for your best interest and is trying to get you to help you to learn, rather than, being in a commercial gym and you feel like you're being watched. There's loads of people around and you're like, well, I saw this thing on YouTube. I'm trying. I hope it goes well and I don't end up on YouTube for going viral.
Right. Exactly.
The personal part of training has really gone a little bit now that everyone's on the gym floor filming themselves. And I personally hate that. Even though I'm confident doing what I'm doing in the gym, I still don't want to be in the back of your video. I want this is my
Right.
me time. I'm trying to sweat, get gross looking. I don't want my pit stains in the back of your video.
Exactly. Wow. I'm telling you. So it sounds like the gym that you did, what was the young man's name that gave you a lot of advice? Was it Alex?
Alex Hurwitz. I'll give him a shout out. I'll let
Shout
him
out.
know that I've talked about him.
Yeah, shout out Alex because that's what it's all about, just paying it forward.
And circling back, how you get to know all of your clients personally, including their pets and all of that, that is truly making it personal training
Yes.
and fitting all of that in. Because then at times when the different animals jump on there, the cats and the dogs, you can talk with them. Well, you're next, or something to calm them down and stay on focus with your personal training.
Exactly.
That's all a part of the training.
That's been the best part. You do go through life changes with people, like the longer you're training them. Like, I coach pregnant women sometimes, and I get to go from pre-pregnancy to pregnancy to their postpartum and they're coming back. And so, I'm like, you know what? Today I'm holding a baby. Because that was the only way the session was gonna happen. We couldn't find, childcare. Bring the baby. It's just us in here. If the baby needs to come, the baby needs to come. Mom needs to have her moment or
Yeah,
whatever.
I love
You
that.
know?
I love that. And so you gave us three different techniques of training that you do there in your studio plus dance. What would you say is your favorite, or do you have a favorite, or does
I
it
can't.
depend on the day?
It does. It really does. Okay, so sometimes I don't want to think. I just want to pick something heavy up and put it back down. I'm gonna lift today because I don't have the brain capacity to really think, but I'm gonna do something that makes me feel like I'm working hard. It may not be the most complicated or glamorous workout, but it's just gonna be literally me doing, probably, if I'm feeling real lazy, I'm deadlifting for sure. I love a deadlift, and I'll just, even if I don't want to work out, I'll do that. I've got endometriosis and PCOS. I get really bad like cramps, inflammation. I have like a lot of like fluctuations with my hormones and stuff. And so a lot of times Pilates is like the only thing that makes me feel like my body's not going to fall apart. It feels like I just need to do something that is going to be focused on like breathing and movement. And I might be on the mat 4 times in a day, depending on how bad my cramps are. 'Cause my back gets really, really tight and stiff, and I get really ill. So I start physically like vomiting and stuff. So it's a way of me being like, I'm just trying to like breathe through it and control it. And
Mm-hmm.
that sometimes the other way I'll do that is hop on like a stationary bike when I'm not being nauseous and I'm just trying to move. I used to have a bike at home that I would just kind of like cycle through it because I'm like drenched in sweat, and it helps me to just focus on something else. The pain is like constant and there's not anything you can do about it. So I just try and find something else. And then when I'm feeling really like I want to be strong and bendy and challenge myself, pole is great for that. Or I'm dancing. Like I just want to roll around on the floor and do some movement, or I want to really stretch, or I want to try and do this combination I saw on Instagram or something like that. So it really just depends on my mood. And I'm always kind of rotating between all of those moods. I couldn't even tell you my favorite movie because it's very like, well, what mood am I in? My
Exactly.
favorite movie for what kind of mood am I in? Like, I'm that kind of person.
Yeah,
I think the
exactly.
only thing I can actually say I have one favorite is my favorite color is purple. Other than that, when
Yeah.
someone's like, what's your favorite something? I'm like, I don't know. I've immediately started panicking. I need to ask 10 follow-up questions to give you a good answer.
It's
Wow.
good that you're staying active with whatever comes up, you've got something for it. You're
Yeah.
feeling a certain way, I'm still moving forward. I'm still going to do something for that. If there's pain or whatever, well, let me do this for that. So whatever it is, you're still doing it. And your body is saying, thank you.
Yes, for sure. And I love purple. I had to come in and say that purple is my favorite color as well. And, I also love that you are living your message. So you're not asking anything of your client that you're not willing to give of yourself as well. And that's the biggest sell. Because when people see you walking your talk, when people see you being your own brand, your own advertisement, seeing you push through, then it's like, yeah, I'm going to do it as well. So we talked a little bit pre-recording, and as we're wrapping up, I really want you to leave some of the wisdom that we discussed, and that was like finding your balance, because someone can be listening and they're like, oh, wow, that sounds so great. I'm here for it. I want to get a studio. I want to do the things that Tatiana's doing. And that's great. But in all full transparency, talk about that balance component and how you got there.
This is a good question because I feel like a lot of people have, since I've opened the space, they're like, oh, you need to open another one in North London. I was like, There's a part of me that's like, well, I kind of lost like the first 2 years of the business. I feel like there was a big shift in losing a lot of the other aspects of my life. You can pick your hard, but you can't have everything. The hard that I picked was launching a studio, which meant that some of the other things that I enjoyed did fall to the side for a bit. And I'm only just now really recentering myself in my weeks and making sure that I'm carving out time. And I'm telling people no now. Sometimes I have to just be like, listen, I can't do that. I need a day off. Because, the first couple of years I was working 7 days a week. Sometimes I would do the morning. Sometimes I would do morning and evening. Sometimes I was there in the afternoon. And, people would be like, oh, I just really need this session. And I'm very aware, like I said, of what's going on in people's lives. So it's hard for me to say no to someone when I'm like, I know you've got 3 kids and this is the one slot that you can fit in. But like, I also haven't had a day off this week. And so I can't do it. And that genuinely is really, really hard for me to say no. I'm getting better about that. But like, you have to realize that while I'm working in the business, I'm also still working on the business. So outside of the hours that I'm teaching, I'm also still doing all the other stuff that is required for a business to run. And so, you have to think about what your priority is. Why are you opening a studio? I was opening a studio because I needed to feel like I had a bit more control over my location. So when I got there, I knew I had the equipment that I needed and I didn't need to go 20 different places at once. If you don't have if you don't have a very, very, very pressing need to have your own space, there's probably a space that can accommodate you. I used other people's spaces for years. And I would highly recommend that because, then you're not dealing with business rates and trash pickups and business insurance and all the other like things that just get thrown at you that you're like, oh my gosh, is this how much it costs to get tampons picked up? Like, sanitary waste is an expense that you just aren't. There's so many things that just come up that you're not necessarily aware of that take you out of the business. They take you out of the fun part. The fun part is getting to train people and work with people and be in the space and stuff. And the business running part is a whole different skill and section. So I'd always say maybe to think of that. And then also know what your minimum is. Like, even when I say I wasn't training, I mean, I wasn't pushing myself. It doesn't mean that I wasn't exercising. I would go cuckoo if I didn't do something. Like, I need to move or my brain doesn't function well. And I have no tolerance for anybody, including myself. So I'd be very snappy if I didn't. So it just means that like, I wasn't pushing myself. I wasn't, setting any real benchmarks or goals that I was trying to achieve, I was still training. So I would still always do my minimums. I always got my 2 days a week of strength training in. I was always doing at least 2 days a week of pole training. I was always doing, because I'm teaching classes, so I'm preparing classes. I don't ever just walk in and do stuff randomly. I was still doing my Pilates every day. It just means that sometimes I wasn't doing my gymnastics, which made me sad. But, I'm still training, but
Yeah.
now I'm training for something. I'm training and I have goals and I have benchmarks I'm trying to hit and I'm pushing myself. But you should never get to a point where you're doing nothing for yourself. And I think that's really important. So if you're someone that's at home and you're like, I have no time for anything, if you're watching TV, you have time for something. Just do a little stretch while you're watching TV. Do some squats and push-ups and body weight stuff while you're waiting for your kids' dinner to cook in the oven. Like, try and keep it simple. I have people who I write programs for where I'm like, they can only do 10 minutes a day. But if I can give them 10 minutes a day, 6 days a week, that ends up being at least an hour of something versus an hour of nothing.
Yeah.
So starting there, then they realize, okay, actually I can find 10 minutes a day, and then we can push it to 15 sometimes. And it's like, you may never get past 30 minutes a day. You may never have 6 days, but you have to work with what you actually can do realistically. So be realistic about what time you have, be intentional about what you need to achieve, and then try and, write that out. Create some sort of structure for yourself that you can do that in.
Yes, that's awesome.
And it was great when I heard you say taking time out for yourself. You have to do that because quite often when we're into physical training, mental training, doing, as Diane was alluding to earlier, a multitude of modalities is pulling at your mind, body, spirit, your emotion in all directions. You're creating. Stop. Take time out for yourself. Relax. You've got to keep you together. And that really resonated with me when you said that. Take time out for yourself.
Right, because we can't pour from an empty cup. So you have to find a way to fill your cup. And sometimes it's going to come in a very, very high flow. Sometimes it is drip, drip to fill that cup, but you got to keep that cup under there and you got to fill your cup, right? So a couple of things. First, thank you so much for your time. It is non-refundable and we appreciate you. We do, because even in the busyness of all that you're doing. I mean, you just came off of this like phenomenal training over the weekend because we've been going back and forth talking, and you still hit the pause to just drop some love and spend some time with us here in the virtual studio. So we appreciate that. And then the other thing is, what love drop would you leave to our listeners?
I would say that there's just more good people in the world than you realize. And if you're scared to try something new, do it, because you may connect with someone. And those connections are, I think, what the world is really missing right now, is those in-person connections, those moments where we're really just connecting with one human to one human about a shared experience. And I know this has all been about fitness anyways, but I think that's a great way to meet people and make friends, is to, I don't know, go do a pickup soccer game, or go join your local running club, or go join your local walking club. Or if you don't have that, start that. Find somebody that is in a similar situation to you and maybe just needs a little outside motivation to spend some time with, because the world is just full of really beautiful people and we're all going through stuff and we all need each other.
Wow.
Well, no, that was a lot. We're all connected in one way or the other, and caring is sharing. And
100%.
health is wealth, and on and on. There are some beautiful people out there. We just have to make that connection, starting with ourselves.
And we connected with you when we were out there in the UK in Shepherd Bush. And just for our listeners, as we're signing off, we met Tatianna. She was in a pub and she was our server. So, her vibe was phenomenal. And I was like, oh man, I really like her. And it was something that was so familiar. But, she was talking with that English accent. And then at some point in the conversation, because wherever you're from, it's going to come out.
It's going to
right?
come
No
out.
matter what you pick. Somewhere in that conversation, that Midwest swing came out. And I was like, so where are you from? She's like, girl, I'm from Chicago. Well, right outside Chicago. What? And it's like, we're from Michigan. So it was just like we connected from that point. But the most beautiful part, and what I want to share before we just pivot out of here, is you were there with your husband. Someone had called in and you were just filling in for that person. So you were serving with your husband. And man, I just think that's phenomenal. I feel like that's one love. I feel like that's what we go out doing, Charles and I. So for us to be just so divinely aligned in that moment, that our meeting was synchronistic, right? Our meeting was just being open and allowing for beautiful people to enter. And it just happened. It's like the universe just put that all together because it was so many what ifs. What if we would have walked past that restaurant? What if you would have been at your studio? What if, what if, what if, what if? But everything came together for us to meet. And from that meeting, I knew that one day we would be here in the virtual studio having this conversation. So I love that. And I really appreciate you coming. I'm going to get all of your information, put it in the narrative note of this podcast. If you're listening, we appreciate you hanging in with us. And we invite you to connect with Tatianna. You'll be happy you did. And if you missed it, she does do personal training worldwide because she does it virtual. And if you're in London town or in that area of West London, go check out the studio, right? So we'll put all that in there and definitely share it with someone that you feel could benefit, you know? And also, if the show resonates, we invite you to subscribe and share the love there as well. And Tatianna, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're so welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. And as Charles and I often do, we sign off with one love.
Never a second will I waste, never an opportunity to taste the sweetness of this life.
Thank you for tuning in to the Love Drops podcast. Be sure to follow this podcast and share the love with everyone you know. Until next time, this is Charles and Diane signing off. One love.